there'd be a lot of poop in my pants. I've seen a 6-foot alligator go swinging through the air and slam into a tree.
These guys are the scientists of the supernatural, lecturers leaving lessons for inquiring laymen. They are applying the scientific method to a world that baffles science. They are the cryptids of the corn.
But who else has big black wings and red eyes?
Batman.
Oh, Mothman.
Oh yeah, Mothman.
A great white shark was stolen.
Oh, someone stole a shark?
I got stuff for you don't even know about.
She's a witch. She turned me into a newt.
Who knows? Anything could be possible. Anything could be possible.
It's really big abduction vibes.
Holy moly.
It sounds like you were abducted.
And it just stood up. I mean, it just like kept going and going. And she goes, what the?
Hello, and welcome back to Cryptids of the Corn podcast. I am the great and powerful Mystery. And once again, you guys should be used to this. I've gotten rid of Jay for the night. But don't worry, as always, I've replaced him with somebody much, much better. He never listens to these, so he never knows. But tonight, we're going to be joined from across the planet. We're almost at a 12-hour time change difference. So it's the morning there and evening here. But I'm joined by John from Creepers, Cryptids, and Paranormal Corner. Hello!
Hey, mate, how you going?
Oh, living the dream. We've been excited for this for a while.
Yeah, it's good. It's hard to sort it all out with the time differences, but we found a sort of level ground where it's not 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning for you, and it's early enough for me to do it.
So yeah, we were talking off air when we did the show with Weird Crap in Australia. So for us, it was, what was it? It was 5 a.m. We had to get up to start recording, and they stayed up till 11 p.m. It was just so it was fun because we were both kind of delirious by the end of it. But thank you for joining. I'm so excited to have you on here.
Yeah, thanks heaps for having me. Yeah, it would have been a bit wild around here if I did that. I've got the 2 little kids sitting out in the computer room doing this. I would have been in here, would have woke up and been doing cartwheels, and we wouldn't have been able to have a chat. So it's good we've got a time. They've just gone out with the missus, and the kids have gone over to see their parents for a little bit, so we can get into this, eh?
Awesome. And then before we get rocking and rolling, will you please promote yourself?
Yeah, sweet. Well, on YouTube, it's Creepers, Cryptid, and Paranormal Corner. It's not massive. I only started it it was during the lockdowns we had in Australia where we couldn't go out. We would go to work, come home, and I needed something to do. So after I had a few encounters, I thought I'd make up a YouTube channel and start talking about the encounters. So yeah, so Creepers, Cryptid, and Paranormal Corner. And then just on Instagram, I've just got Creepers, Cryptids. It's not real big. It's just sort of, I made that sort of to talk to people and try and promote a bit. So, but yeah, that's the 2 places you can find me.
And once again, everybody, I always have all the links below in the description, so please go subscribe to his YouTube. Sorry about that. I already had a Wi-Fi hiccup. So yeah, please go to subscribe to his YouTube. And I think I kind of watched your most recent video because you talked about us a little bit.
Yeah.
But you're getting ready to start doing more and more stuff on the YouTube.
Yeah. I'm going to start doing, I don't know if it'll be all on YouTube. There might be a bit just on the podcasting services, but yeah, I'm looking at doing some interviews and stuff, and it should be good. It's sometimes, like, especially through winter here, it gets pretty cold, and I mightn't have enough time to go out and do investigations, so I can get on. I've got a lot of mates now that are in the industry. They've made documentaries and have different groups, so it'd be good to get them on and talk to them. I know a lot of people in America and stuff too, so in Europe and that, so it'd be good to get that to the guys here in Australia to listen to.
And now, I may be wrong. I'm wrong more often than I'm right, it feels like, anymore. But aren't you going to a conference or something soon?
Yeah, I think there's one in the next couple of weeks, but I'm not too sure what's going on with it, so I might... there is one, there was one you go to in person like you guys have over there, but I'm not sure if that's still going ahead. One of the people running that had passed away. But
Oh.
I'm actually doing an online conference with some guys too. They've been doing them for a few years. That's probably the one you're talking about.
Yeah.
It's Our Alien Ancestry. They're really good. They know their stuff, and they come out and do this to sort of help people and let people know what's going on. And so there's a lot of people that are in the Shane Yowie research group. They're going to be on it, and a couple of other people. So it's good to get on there and have a chat. And it's pretty cool that people think the things that encounters I've had that are actually pretty interesting to them, and that when it happens to us, you're like, oh, it's scary, and it's not, doesn't really mean much to you. But then when people hear it and go, wow, like, we want to hear more, it's actually, it's cool, and it's cool and bad at the same time, because you want to go looking for more, but so you get a bit worried. But it'd be good to get on there and have a chat, and I love getting out and letting everyone know about my encounters, just because I think people should know. Like I said, I've got a young family, and I used to go camping in the bush all the time, and I'd had a couple of encounters when I was younger, but I just sort of pushed them aside and didn't think of them. But after these recent encounters I've had, it's like people should know about what's going on around us. And the last 3-4 years when I've had encounters, they've all been within 5-10 minutes at the most drive from major populations. So they're so close. So when you're going out bush, you could go 3-4 hour drive and stuff like that. You're definitely going to have encounters out there if you're paying attention.
I can't wait. I'm so excited. So we got Yowie stuff, and we have Dogman stuff we're going to talk about tonight.
Yeah.
So I'm going to let you take over. You lead the stories however you want to. I'm just following.
Awesome. Yeah, well, the first encounter I had, at the time, we didn't really know what was going on until a couple of days later. We sort of sat there and talked about it. But we took a trip down my Nana Pot's farm. It's about 2.5-3 hours drive from Sydney. So you're sort of heading out west. So we went down there, and we went really late because Dad used to work night shifts, and he used to work 6 days a week, work 100 hours. Like, he's a champion, the work he had to do to look after us, me, the mum, and my sister. So he finally got a weekend off, so we went down there, and we left home about 10 o'clock. It would have been about 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. We got down there about 11:30, 12 o'clock at night, and then a pop had already been down there waiting for us. And in the time between trips, they'd actually got a dam built on the property. It was 100 metres long by 50 metres wide, and it was about 12 metres deep. And me and Dad are keen fishermen, and they'd stocked the dam. So, we'll go for a walk down the dam tonight and have a look. We haven't seen it yet. We might be lucky, might be able to take a rod down or something. But it was too late, so we went, we'll just go for a walk. And we're umming and ahhing about it, and decided, we probably won't go. And then said, well, we've got some torches in the cupboard. We'll go for a walk. We'll just walk down there and see what and the torch we had, it was like an old dolphin torch that people have in the boats and that when they go fishing, and a little LED, like the old school security torches, the ones you couldn't shine 10 meters in front of you. They were terrible. Stuff it, we'll go for a walk. And so me, Mum, Dad, and then head off down to the dam, and it was about just over a kilometre walk from the house down there. You go through the open paddock, get down, cross a creek, walk up a hill a little bit, and then you're at the dam. You're actually on the dam wall. So, how cool is this? We've never been for a walk at night down here, and at that time, no one lived down there, and people only went there once every 6 or 12 months. So it was really, really no one was there. People might go down there for 2 days, and that was it. But so we didn't know what was in the area or what went on, and so we went for a walk, and we got probably about 500 metres from the house, and Mum said to everyone, "Hey, stop! Can you smell fire?" And we all stopped, and we were having a sniff like idiots, but we're like, "Yeah, we can smell fire." And this time it was probably about 12:30, 1 o'clock by the time we were going, and there was a no moon in the sky, and it was that dark down there. You haven't got any light pollution from cities or anything, and we're like, what the hell's going on? If there was a fire, we'd be able to see the glow of it even from behind a hill. There'd be enough to glow, be able to see the glow. And it's a bit weird, and kept walking along, and we got a bit further down, and Mum said, "Stop! Can can you hear fire? And sure enough, when we all stopped, you could hear this like a big bushfire coming through the bush, and we got a bit weirded out. Then we're like, what the hell? And now we can smell fire. Now we could hear it. Like, where is it? And then said maybe someone's squatting on the property. They might have a campfire down at the dam or something. We better go have a look. And you walk down the hill, and it was probably about 50 to 100 meters further from where we heard the fire that it just stopped, and then you go through a gateway, and then it drops down to the creek. So we've walked through the gateway and started headed down towards the creek, and all of a sudden we heard this big crash bang. There was a big willow tree on the other side of the creek. And when we heard this big crash bang, it was enough to stop us, and you hear this weird foop, foop, foop through the air, and we went, what's that? And all of a sudden a massive branch hit the fence behind us. So something had been thrown from this tree over us, hit the fence behind us, and we freaked, and you heard something big run off through the bush, and that was us. We were taking off up the hill like it might be pigs or something, and we didn't even think about the branch hitting the fence beside us, and we've taken off up the house 100 mile an hour. And me being, I was about 15, 16, I was fit as, and I'd taken off, and I got about 100 metres in front of everyone, and then went, I've seen this documentary before, I'm heading back. I was the one off by myself, I was going to get taken out, so I ran back, and I'm like, hurry up, Mum, Dad, let's get out of here, like, get going. And so we got up the house, and it shook us, and we told Pop about it, and he said, oh, maybe some goats are up the tree, because the willow tree down there was sort of went along the ground a bit and then come up, like it was a big massive willow tree. And he said maybe they were up there and they broke something, like there's something got thrown at us. So we went for a drive down, and underneath the willow tree you could see all the grass was all patted down. There was no sign of goats, pigs or anything. I've never seen a goat or a pig or anything throw a branch, so it had to be a yowie, but we weren't thinking that at the time. We went up to the dam, there was no signs of fire or anything. And since this has happened, and I've had other encounters and spoke to people, and that smell of fire, it's been documented a lot in Australia with yowie encounters. And then that roar of a fire, like obviously it wasn't a fire, it might have been this creature growling at us, trying to keep us out of the area. But so we've gone back up the house after going down and looking, and we were sitting around and thought nothing of it. Thought, oh, it's just, can't explain it. Dad goes, oh, maybe it was a yowie. And everyone started to laugh at him. And I said, what's a yowie? And then he explained to me about it being the Australian type of Bigfoot or Sasquatch. And I asked Pop if we could get on the internet and have a look it up. And sure enough, back then it must have been when Australian Yowie Research website first started, and we went on there, and from the farm, within like 50 kilometres there'd been 3 or 4 sighted like encounters like put on this website, and some of them were back to the 1800s, like they were newspaper clippings and stuff. You went out to 100 kilometres from the farm, and it went to about 50 encounters, and you go 200 kilometres, it was 1,000. Like, it was ridiculous how many there were around. Like, as the crows fly, 50k down there is not much. It's all flat ground, most of it. There's not many hills and that. These creatures are that big, they can move pretty quickly over a long distance. So yeah, and that was the first encounter I had, and it still spins me out to this day that we had no idea what it was. Like, how stupid were we to think, well, what's that? Like, that's nothing. Like, it had to be something that threw something at us. But yeah, that was my first encounter, and yeah, that was when I was about 15, 16, and didn't have anything happen for a long time after that, and up until like the last 5 years.
So yeah, before we move on to that stuff, I have a couple questions and a comment.
Yeah.
The smoke smell. So we've always heard, I guess my first question, are you under the impression that the Yowie and the Sasquatch is at least a similar species?
There has to be something, like there has to be a link somewhere, you know what I mean? Like, you look at all the different races of people out there, and there's got to be, they've got to be related somehow. I reckon they've come from the same area, like they've come from the same line. So, but yeah,
that's where my thinking is too. I just wanted to make sure that that's kind of your kind of thing,
yeah,
regional variants and stuff like that. You have species like moose that are they're circumhemispherical, so moose are native to everywhere in the northern hemisphere pretty much. There are different species of moose through that area, but it's a moose, you know. So everything about that first encounter, if you took out the location, it sounds just like an encounter with a Sasquatch. And for Ohio, it's called Hocking Hills. They break trees, they throw branches. Like, it's just a scare tactics to get you moving.
Well, that branch that got thrown at us, we're like, obviously I've been down there a lot since, but I've gone down and made a video to show where it all happened, and that's about 70 metres this branch has been thrown, like, to that willow tree. And I was good growing up playing cricket and I didn't play baseball, but throwing a baseball and stuff, like, I used to be able to throw, and our footy fields are 100 metres, right, and I used to be able to throw a cricket ball from a goal post over the black dot of the other goal post at the other end, so well over 100 metres. Like, I had a wicked arm on me, but there's no way in hell I could have thrown that branch that far. So it had to be something massive. Even me and Dad sort of picked it up and went, holy shit, this is heavy for two people, let alone one thing throwing it at us. Like, it's it's unhuman. Like, it's superpowers. Like,
I don't know if you heard our episode when we interviewed Andrew. He was in the boat and had a Bigfoot encounter here in the U.S., but we talked about a story out of Michigan where the Bigfoot was hunking, about 2-foot chunks of asphalt at the boat.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and, a 2-foot chunk of asphalt's probably, 75, 100 pounds. And it was coming up over the top of a cliff face.
I do construction, so we build roads and that. That's crazy.
And then you have a very unique thing that I don't know. You guys smelled smoke. So we've always talked about Sasquatch having, people talk about they release, like, the one I seen, I didn't smell anything. But I do think, like, some primates do release smell as a threat mechanism.
Yeah.
But I've never heard of one with, like, a smoky smell. That's really interesting.
Yeah. Well, there's been a few reported over here, sort of like our bushfire, like the eucalyptus sort of smell in the burns and that. Like, our bushfires would smell a bit different to you guys. You use mainly pine trees and all that, but there's been a lot reported with the smoky smell, but there's been 10 times more with like ammonia sort of smell, like poo and stuff like that. But then there's also been encounters that they've said like a electrical fire, like your welding smell and stuff like that. Like, so it's weird over here with it. That smoky smell over here, obviously they're out now bush, maybe they eat some of the trees, something off the trees and that, and it sort of gives them that smell too, or it might have been we were just that far away that it sort of smelled a bit different than what it would have been if we were within 10 foot. Like,
so you're saying that you've had other people, or at least reports of other people having that similar kind of smell with their encounters in Australia?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Then I haven't done much research about Australian yowie because it's very difficult to research over here about any kind of stuff there. It's really hard to find anything. A lot of the articles are from MSN or something like that, so it's been eaten up and spit out 6 times.
Yeah. Just bags a person. But if you go into Australian Yowie research, I think it's the Yowie Hunters website, they've got everyone's logged their encounters. They've even got an interactive map where you can actually go to and it shows you where all the locations of the encounters. It's getting better over here. The guys over there are doing an awesome job.
That's awesome.
It's the same thing. They've got nowhere they can find encounters. The bloke that made it, Dean Harrison, started it because he had nowhere to go to look for any information on these creatures.
So yeah, that's amazing because those resources are here in the U.S. Oh my gosh, now I just forgot what it's called. I use it for all kinds of research. I know the guys that run it. Now I just forgot it. The BFRO. I'm like, how did I just forget the BFRO?
I was about to say the BFRO.
Yeah. So that's how they do a similar thing, and that's kind of how it was made too.
Yeah.
But those are amazing resources. Before we move on, I just want your opinion, or what are your thoughts about the encounter? Do you think it was just trying to get you guys out of there? Do you think it was really aggressive, or what's just kind of your general thought?
Yeah, I think we might have just spooked it. Like I was saying, like, not often people would go down the farm. It was just sort of a holiday escape that everyone had gotten. We'd just sort of go down there if we had a spare weekend and had nowhere to go or didn't have much money to go on holidays. You'd go down the farm. So we might have scared it, or it might have there might have been a whole troop of them there, or whatever they'd be called, like a whole group of them there, and that might have been the alpha saying, hey, stay up the house, like, because no one had been out walking of a night like that down to that location. So might have been we just spooked it, or it might have been it saying, hey, get out of it, this is my area.
So a couple weeks ago, we were hanging out with, I don't know if you know who like Ron Moorhead is. He's the one that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we were hanging out with Ron Moorhead and Rick Rellis, a Bigfoot researcher, a couple other Bigfoot researchers too, and we were kind of talking about that some of the scariest encounters, like these aggressive ones, are not aggressive as in wanting to hurt you, but aggressive displays. Are these properties here in the U.S. that are like, nobody's hunted this property for 10 years. It's the first year anybody's hunted it, and they get really. So it kind of sounds like a similar area to that, to where it's mostly left alone, and then people go in every once in a great while, and then they have an experience because the Bigfoot, the Yowie, is like, this is my area.
Yeah, it'd be like someone open up your front door, and you're sitting there on the lounge watching TV, and you go, what the hell, are you going to get up and go off? But then if it end up being a family member or something, you sort of settle down and go, that's all good. And I think that's what's happened. We've spooked it, it's thrown something off at us, and then realised we weren't a threat, and that's sort of when it just took off and left us alone. But I did have another encounter with this creature that same trip, but it was odd. It was just me and Dad went fishing, jumped a fence, and we were fishing there, and we heard something run through the bush towards us, and we sort of freaked and looked, and there was a little kangaroo, and we had a bit of a laugh because we were already on edge from that night. And about 20 minutes later, after us fishing and we were laughing, going, oh, you pussy, you got scared, it was a little kangaroo. We heard the same noise, but it was about 10 times louder, and we're like, oh, it's another kangaroo. And we looked over the little kangaroo, the kangaroo looked at us, and you seen the colour drain out of its face, and it took off, and that's when me and Dad, we took off too, got on the bike and took off. And so it was obviously still in the area, and it was sort of obviously running down towards us, but there was no like aggression, there was nothing thrown at us that time. And I've been down the farm again, like since I started doing my YouTube, and I made a video down there and found a lot of signs of the creature still being there. But since now and that first encounter down there, Ned and Pop had lived at the farm for a bit, my uncles lived at the farm a bit, and they've done a bit of shooting and stuff, whereas it never used to happen down there. So where we've found signs of this creature still being around, it's a bit further away from where it was before, but there's definitely still a creature down there, or creatures down there. So it's pretty cool. It's scary. Like I said, the first time it happened, I'd never even heard of a Yowie in it. Thought I was going to die that night, and I forgot what I was going to say.
No, it's my brain works the same way, because when I had my Bigfoot encounter when I was about 15, 16 also, I felt the same way. At the time, it was the scariest thing ever. It freaked us out. I didn't go back, I stopped doing a lot of stuff. And looking back now, after we got into this stuff, if it wanted to hurt me, it would have hurt me. We were
100%.
30 feet away from it, and we were kids. And if it wanted to grab me and take off, it would have. Like nobody would ever heard from us again.
That's it. I don't want to be rude, but how old are you?
Oh no, that's not rude. I'm 28.
Yeah, well, I'd say I'm 32. So
yeah,
it's funny because I've had so many encounters, and a lot of my friends and that have all had their first encounters, the ones that got them into this sort of stuff. It was like, so I was 15, 16, which would have been about 2005, 2006. In Australia, in that 2005 to say 2008, it was just like an explosion of encounters, whether that was a real big breeding time or what, and then it sort of goes quiet, hot and cold, either side of that 2 or 3 years. So that's why I was asking. I was like, oh, maybe it was around that same time, and maybe it was the same around the world as well. But I've sort of been looking into that a bit to try and find a bit of a common ground, whereas it might be every couple of years, say they might have a big boom of 2 or 3 years where they really breed up and then they go quiet for a bit and then do it again. So I'm sort of been trying to look into that. But
I could definitely see something like that happening, or a different, so here in the U.S. we have the 17-year cicada hatch. So every 17 years they come out of the ground. You guys have cicadas there?
Yeah.
Okay. So
yeah, every summer.
Yeah, we have cicadas every summer. But there's different species that are different hatch rates. But when we have the 17-year cicada here on the Appalachian part of the U.S., the copperhead population almost quadruples the next following year.
Yeah.
And it's because literally the ground is covered.
Yeah.
The ground is covered in food source for them. So, nobody's struggling, nobody's hunting. Like, there's literally just food everywhere. So if it's something like that where it's food source connected, or, it doesn't have to be food source, but something similar, I could see that. Or they're just getting braver.
Might be the weather patterns or
Yeah.
something. But and I know in the last 2 years, we don't have native deer here. They've been introduced on deer farms and stuff, and they've had them escape, and people have bought them as pets and that. And the last 2 years, our deer population, I think they said it increased something like 250,000% or something ridiculous like that. We've gone from having no deer, and you got to get permits to everything to them, saying like in the last 2 years, going, look, they're a pest now, shoot and kill as many as you want now. We need to try and get the numbers under. And I've started seeing them in my town, like driving out of town to go to work and that, and we've never had deer there. This farm now, they've started finding the scratching on the trees from their antlers and stuff, and so I'm tipping the next 10 years or so, the population of these creatures are going to go through the roof again. So not even 10 years, probably the next 2 or 3 years, we'll have another boom where everyone will be seeing a heap of them again. So I know since COVID, we've had so many encounters, and I think it's because we're all in lockdown, and then we all come out of lockdown and got to explore again, and these creatures were probably going, hey, where are all the people gone? So they've come sort of looking for us to see what was going on. But I reckon the next couple of years, it's going to get pretty wild with them.
See, I think we had the exact opposite thing happen here for our COVID stuff.
Yeah.
Because that was pretty much the only thing that was still open was state parks. So everybody's like, well, I can't go to the mall. I can't go to the movie. I might as well go for a walk. Yeah. Bigfoot's probably hated it. Because there's all these people are just out all the time.
Yeah. Well, when we had the lockdowns, we couldn't go 5Ks from the house. So you couldn't get to any of the state forests. So they weren't sort of closed, as you'd say. Like, they're not gates locked and everything, but no one went into them, you know what I mean? So the creatures would be used to our state forests and national parks, and that gets smashed with people, tourists and everything. They'd be used to all these people. And 2 or 3 months into the lockdowns, they would have been going, what the hell's going on? Where are all these people? So they would have been come looking for us.
They probably thought you guys went extinct.
It could have been why I've had, and a lot of people are having so many encounters around the population. They're not having to travel there 3 or 4 hours. I know a lot of my friends, they'll drive an hour or 2 hours up to the Blue Mountains, and then they'll hike 3 or 4 hours down into a valley and then have their encounters there. But I'm getting in the car, driving 10 minutes to where I go fishing in my kayak and having encounters. It's like I'm within, say, a kilometre of someone's farm. Like, I've never heard of anything like this. It's crazy.
And maybe before we move on, one thing that I think a lot of basically the rest of the world may not understand about Australia, I mean, you talked about it a little bit off air, is that it's a massive country with a very low population.
Yeah, well, we're nearly this. I think they said we're the same size as the United States. I think maybe without Alaska.
Yeah.
Or we've got the same land mass as the populated areas of the United States. So that's pretty big, and we've only got. I think we're almost at 25 million people.
So it's for everybody at home,
land and
Chicago here in the U.S. has 2.5 million people. So 10% of Australia's population lives in Chicago alone. That's crazy to me.
Crazy when you think of it like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're saying, so they're roughly the same size as continental U.S. And you imagine if there was only 20, like, you could probably take 20 cities in the U.S. and get that number. And then spread it out, So the population, like all your hills, all your valleys, they could have all kinds of no contact. So I think you guys may have a lot more. You guys may have higher numbers than we do over here. But
well, that's it. You look at our encounters, and then you say if you went off the population, like percentage, like we've got a pretty big strike rate with encounters with these creatures. And as I was saying to you, like, I think it's something like 90% of the population live in 10%. I think it might be 16% of the land mass. So that's a big chunk that people aren't living in and usually just driving through to get to another town. They're not hanging out, and I think even with camping and stuff like that, they probably only go around, say, 20% of the location, like of the land mass. So there's a lot of space that hasn't been seen, and that's why I laugh when they say like the Tasmanian tiger's extinct. You can go to the Blue Mountains. It's an hour and a bit from Sydney. Like I said, had 3 or 4 hours into the bush. People haven't been there before. How can you say that a creature isn't still alive there, let alone these big, massive creatures, and even the little ones? Because we got the little yowies, they're called ginjutties, and they get to about 2 foot tall. They're a bit chunkier and that. And then we've got the normal yowies, which a lot of people call them the dooligar and stuff like that. But then we also have a lot of reports of the large ones, sort of like the encounters that people have in Alaska or Canada and stuff like of. We call them quinkins over here, where they're getting to the 12, 14, 15 foot tall. And you think, like, oh, they wouldn't be able to survive in Australia, but when we're only using 10% of the land mass, there's a lot of space for these creatures to survive and go unseen. And
100%. I think that's just something the rest of the world maybe doesn't realize about Australia, because see it on the map and stuff. It's huge, so you just imagine it's a huge populated country, and it's not. It is a monstrous country with amazing wildlife and untouched lands. We talked about the rainforest in the southwest corner of Australia. Now I can't think of the name of it, but it is the largest, most undocumented rainforest left on the planet, because nobody can go in there because everything will kill you, and it's so far away from medical treatment, no biologist wants to risk it. Anything could be there. The trilocene, the Tasmanian tiger, the megalania.
I know there's panthers in Australia. Like, I've had 3 encounters with panthers. I've seen them, and they say they don't exist. And I thought maybe when America came over for World War One and that, they had mascots, and they said when the war finished, they let all their mascots go. Like, there was alligators let go in my creek, like the river out. It's probably 500 meters from my house. There was alligators let go wild, but they end up dying. They found them once winter time hit, they died off because it's too cold for the crocodiles to live down here. But they had panthers, jaguars, everything. They let them go because they couldn't take them home with them. And so I've had encounters. I know of thousands of encounters with panthers. Sorry, but there's also cave paintings in the Kakadu, the top tip of Australia, of black panthers from, say, 10,000 years ago. The Aboriginals painted, and my family's ancestry Aboriginal, so I'm proud Aboriginal. I know I'm not dark skin or that, but I've got enough of it in me to get me into it, and I want to learn more about my family because a lot of them got murdered in a massacre. So nothing against them, but how could the Aboriginals 10,000 years ago draw a creature that they'd never seen before? They couldn't have made up a big black cat to draw on a wall. Oh, I wonder if I ever see one of these things. Like, there's documented paintings of these creatures being here too. Like, the stories of them, they couldn't train them, so the Aboriginals used to kill them because they'd kill people. They couldn't train them or anything. Whereas the dingoes and the thylacines and that either didn't touch them or they could train them to use them to hunt and stuff. Where these big panthers were wiping people out, so they killed them off. And we've got documented, I think it's what's it called, the marsupial lion.
Right, I was going to say Thylacolea.
Yeah, they were here, and they were a tan colour, and I've seen a tan-coloured big cat run across the road in front of me, whether it was one of them maybe or not, but black ones...
I was going to say the same thing.
Big panthers, and...
I wonder if it's Thylacolea, because, they...
It could be, because... We got dingoes here, and they're tan colours. Everyone sees the dingoes. But in my area, you drive 10 minutes up, there's a national park there. They actually had a cull of these wild dogs they had down in the valley. They thought they were wild dogs. All these black things, they were eating people's sheep and that, and they done tests on them. They were purebred black dingoes. So animals evolved to their location, see? So black will hide and camouflage in the dark green forest before a tan coloured creature was. So these panthers that people are seeing mightn't be black panthers like you guys have over there, and that they could be these marsupial lions that have just evolved in this location to become that colour. They're black instead of the tan like sandy colour. So, but they're here, and there's a lot more other things that are out in the bush here that no one knows about, and probably won't ever know about, because like you said, we only use 10% of the location.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. Do you want to move on to your next encounter?
Yeah, well, there was another encounter. It was with a yowie. It was actually a bluff charge, and it scared the absolute crap out of me. And
I wonder why.
This was close. Yeah, this wasn't 3 hours away at Nana Pop's farm. This was about a 5-minute drive from my house. And at the same time, it was, COVID started was basically the end of December 2019. This was about, I think it was December 2018, sorry, because it was my son was born. And I'd started going out fishing. I'd got some time off. The missus, after my son was born, I had some paternity leave from work so I could help her and hang out with the kids and that. I think I had a couple of weeks off anyway. In that time, I'm a mad fisherman. I go out in my kayak all the time, bass fishing. And anyway, I was like, if I get up early in the morning and I'm home by, say, 8 o'clock in the morning, is that all right? I'm not going to stuff yous around. She's like, yeah, that's good, because then you can get the daughter breakfast and help them get ready for the day and that. So some mornings I was getting in the kayak in the water at 3 o'clock in the morning. It's dark around here. Our rivers aren't as big as your guys. Like, some of our rivers are only 10 metres wide and it's all overgrown. So even when the sun starts to come up until it's right up in the sky, it's still dark in these places. And so I'd started going to this spot, and I went there one morning, got in the water, and I fished up the river. I think I caught something like 40-odd bass in an hour and a half. I was like, I'm definitely going back there, and I got there earlier. And at that same time is when the bushfires were on in Australia. Like, there's a really big bushfires going on and that. And they weren't the massive ones that we had that you guys would have seen, but there was bushfires at the time. And got to this spot. It was about 4 o'clock in the morning, and a little track, you go down and then you hold onto a bit of a branch, drop the kayak into the water, climb down into it. And so I've done that, hopped into it and jumped in the kayak, got all my fishing gear ready. It was about 10 minutes. I was sitting there getting it all ready, and I smoke rolly cigarettes, so I'd roll one up and whacked it in my mouth. And as I flicked the lighter to take a drag of it, something from the bush that I'd walked through and climbed through to get into the water come charging through, smashing everything, and stopped within, it was probably just over a metre from the edge of the bank. And I panicked, I crapped, I've looked up, couldn't see anything, and I've just pushed off with the paddle, pushed off into the water, and I'm floating in the middle going, holy crap, what's going on? And I sat there for about half an hour and looking around, couldn't see anything. Eventually I'd paddled up to the edge and climbed up on the bank and was holding onto the bank and couldn't see nothing there at all, using the big torch and stuff. But the grass was all flattened down, and that scared the absolute crap out of me. And the sun had starting to come up, and further up the river you could hear a lot of deer and that taking off crazy through the bush. So maybe this creature had headed up there. But the thing that got me is when this was all going on, I could hear this like it was weird, like a noise in my head. It was sort of, the only way I can explain it is sort of like you making the Predator noise, like the Predator movies. You make that noise. And I could hear that, and I could hear that in my ears, and I was like, what the hell is that? There's nothing there. It was just like in my head. And when I paddled up and stood up on the bank to have a look, I had the idea of yelling I was going to yell out to try and spook something out of the bush. Maybe it was a big pig or it sounded like a big bull running at me. I was like, maybe I could spook whatever it is out. And I've gone to yell, and I physically couldn't make a noise. And after it all happened and stopped, and I sort of got home and I thought about it, I was like, that's so weird that I couldn't physically make a sound. A lot of people said to me, oh, you're just scared, you're petrified, you couldn't. I was like, well, I paddled up to the edge, stood up on the bank and was looking. If I was petrified to the point that I couldn't physically make a noise, was like, I wouldn't have been able to do that. And I've had a few of my friends say to me, maybe I was getting hit with infrasound and that's why I couldn't make the noise. And you look in infrasound, that's what the tigers and the elephants can do. The tigers hit the little antelope with the infrasound, or hit the monkeys with it. They stop making noises in the tree to stop spooking off their prey as they're coming through the bush. The tigers are massive animals to be sneaking through the big heavy animals sneaking through the bush to try and get a kill. And it sort of made sense. And it was weird. I had my GoPro going the whole time because I had it on a chest mount, and it's still the only footage I've had on my GoPros that's ever come back corrupt. Because I was like, oh my god, I've caught this. I've had it going the whole time. Got home corrupt. I've still got the file on my computer. Maybe one day I might be able to get it fixed or whatever. Like, but it was the only time that's happened. The only time I've ever heard a noise like that in my head, and that being able to stand up there and not make a noise. I thought even I got to the stage I was that scared. I was like, maybe if I yell as loud as I could, the people at the farm up the road might hear me and might come down, because I was petrified. I couldn't get out of the kayak to head to the car because it was in the bush that I'd walked through to get to the water. So if that creature was still there and it was going to get me, if I got out of the water and head up to the car, it could have grabbed me. And I was going in there and I was looking around with the torch as I was heading down. I didn't see anything, and people have said like maybe the yowie had gone invisible or whatever, like they can cloak or whatever. That's why I couldn't see it. But whether it just maybe jumped at me, scared me, and then took off and I didn't hear it because I was too busy panicking, paddling out of there, I might have heard it left the area. But yeah, that was the second encounter with the yowie, and yeah, I didn't know about infrasound or anything at the time. And in that same location, it was nearly 12 months to the day, because I had another yowie encounter, and it was just before I started having the Dogman encounters in a different location. And me and the brother-in-law had gone fishing. After that first encounter at this location, I'd stopped going there overnight, like early in the morning. I'd stopped fishing anywhere early in the morning. I started waiting until the sun come up and said, nah, I'm not going out in the dark anymore. And we went there one afternoon, me and the brother-in-law, and we paddled down and thought, how good's this? We're going out here. We've caught heaps of fish here before, so we go for a fish, and we've headed down, and a massive storm come over. I can't remember the name of the clouds, but you see them before massive storms. It's sort of like the sky goes to like bubble wrap. They're like perfect balls. And I was like, wow, look at them clouds. And my brother-in-law's like, dude, we're in trouble here. He flies planes. He goes, we're in trouble here. I think they start with M. I can't remember the name of him. He said, we're in trouble. That means the atmosphere is really unstable and we're going to cop it. And basically that word, cop it, come out of his mouth, and all of a sudden the trees were nearly laying over, the wind hit, and we basically paddled in, hid under some trees, and got absolutely smashed by this storm. And I've got good rods, they're all carbon fibre graphite. I've got them hidden in my kayak, hoping I don't get hit by lightning and that. And our plan was to go for a fish for an hour or so and then go home. And with this storm hit, we were paddling back to the car in the dark, and that was really worrying me, because I was like, great, we're here again at night, we're going to be in trouble. And nothing was happening. All of a sudden I cast the lure out as I was paddling back, and I heard a boom noise in the bush. And from that point onwards, every time I took a paddle, I could hear something walking through the bush following me. It was on 2 feet. It wasn't cow or a horse or anything. Like, I've trained race horses for 10 years. I know what a big horse sounds like going through the bush and stuff. So I could hear this thing walking along. I'd stop. I'd shine the torch up there. Couldn't see anything. And we gotten up a bit further, and I sort of seen this eye out to the left, and me and the brother-in-law were like, what the hell's that? And we were within 2 or 3 meters. And all of a sudden, all these other eyes started popping up. It was like a cartoon. It scared the crap out of us. All these eyes are peering in our torch shining at this location. It ended up being like, I think it was about 30 deer. We'd sort of spooked them, and they were sort of like, what the hell's going on? But when we looked at them, we got close enough to look. They weren't even looking at us. They were looking across the river to whatever it was walking along in the bush. And that's sort of when we got a bit freaked out and went, maybe this is that same creature. And then all the deer took off, and that was us. We were paddling off like crazy, got back to the car. Didn't hear anything after the deer took off. So we don't know if this creature was following us, or it might have known that them deer were up there, and that was what they were going to go for. But we got out of there, and yeah, that spot, I've only been back there once or twice since, and in the last 4 years, it was bloody crazy. That the infrasound though, like, if that's what it was, it had to be. I couldn't make a noise, but that was wild.
That definitely, it does sound like infrasound, especially when you're talking about the clicking in your head.
Yeah.
So what our theory is, or at least my personal thoughts, is it's actually your ear bones being vibrated. So it's inside your own head, and it's literally this little clicking sound. Because people here in the U.S. report that same thing, not being able to talk, and they hear this. They describe it as static or almost electricity in their head.
Yeah.
And
Well, it sounded like a predator noise.
Yep.
Like if you look, I've looked up predator noise, and there's a man that does that noise on YouTube, and it was dead set the noise I heard in my ears. I was like, what the hell, like, and then, but yeah, that noise, I didn't feel. A lot of people say they feel sick of that, but that was the only thing. I just couldn't make a noise, but that could have been what it wanted from me. You know what I mean?
Right,
It didn't want
yeah.
me to yell out
Just
in
wanted you
case
to
something
shut
at
up.
the farm heard. Yeah, and it obviously didn't want to hurt me, and a lot of people have said to me too, and I thought it was because there was bushfires on at that time. If you follow, there's a little creek from where I go in there. If you follow that, sort of, you can follow it for about 15 k's, and it takes you to the Blue Mountains. So maybe this yowie was down there because it had escaped the fires that are up in the Blue Mountains, and me lighting that cigarette, it might have thought I was trying to start a fire, and that's why he jumped out and charged me. And then realised what I was doing, and then went, oh, hang on, he's not starting a fire, he's just lighting a cigarette, the idiot. You know what I mean? That's how a lot of people have said, maybe that's why it did it. It see that flame and went, hey, I've just escaped from these fires. Don't be starting one here, mate. And could have got me, same thing.
You may have just made our new T-shirt. Because we have Smokey the Bear here, but you have Smokey the Yowie.
Yeah, that's it.
No, that is interesting. They're not
angry.
dumb.
He might have been cranky I didn't give him one. Nah.
Now, I mean, we've had stories of them wanting tobacco and stuff like that here.
Yeah, well, I've heard a lot of it, and all my encounters, I always have a cigarette when I'm out because it get me stressed out, and I always have encounters when I'm smoking, but like I said, I smoke, so it's just could be just a coincidence.
Could be that.
That one was definitely, I was lighting a cigarette, and it charged me, and I think that's what it was. It was the flame of me lighter. It thought I was trying to start a fire. Maybe, yeah, it might have got hurt in the bushfires or whatever and gone there to get out of them, or just, yeah, it thought I was trying to start a fire, so that's why you cut that out. But yeah, it could have got me. It could have easily, where it was, it could have leant over and grabbed me if I wanted to, and it was massive. Like, it sounded like a big bull running through the bush. It wasn't a little kangaroo or a wombat. I've been hunting and in the bush my whole life, and I've heard the noises of creatures in our bushland, and it was nothing like I'd ever heard before. So
correct me if I'm wrong. Besides farm animals in Australia, your biggest land animals are probably kangaroos and deer and pig.
Yep. Up the top end, we've got buffalo, like the top end of Australia, but nothing around here, but big water buffalo and that. But the biggest, we get the big red kangaroos, which we don't have in this area. We've only got the grey kangaroos. There is pigs around here, but they're not as big as the one out west. They get massive. Like, I've seen some monsters out there, but the ones around here are sort of mid-sized wild boars. But other than that, little kangaroo, wallaby, nothing.
Yeah.
Nothing of the size of these creatures I've been here and come through the bush at me, and it's crazy.
But yeah, the bluff charge is something I've never experienced. I never want to experience. And like you said, if it wanted to get you, it could have got you. You know, but it's still a terrifying thing to have a very large animal just running at you and stopping a few feet away.
Yeah. And the fact that I'd walked through, like, I would have been
there
within arm distance of it coming through the bush. And I went to go out there to do a recreation video, and the land that I used to get in there was owned by the university, like the college there. And something happened with the council. The council, like our area, I think they stopped paying the college to lease that area next to the bridge. And anyway, something happened. Council stopped giving them money for it, so the college has gone stuff yous and put a big barbed wire fence up around so you can't get in there. Whether someone else might have had an encounter down there and they don't want anyone to get there, but I don't want to get full conspiracy theorists about it. But I think that's what's happened. They stopped paying the bills, so the university said, stuff yous, you can't go there, so I can't get to that location anymore. I might get onto them one day and try and see if I can get permission, say I want permission to be able to get there to get me kayak in the water again. But yeah, that encounter happened. Then nearly 12 months to the day was when I had that encounter with my brother-in-law in that same spot. So since then onwards, that's when it's been closed off. But yeah, it's 5-minute drive from my house, and like I said, from that first encounter there, I'd stop going early in the mornings. I'd only go fishing after the sun come up. It sort of stuffed up me fishing, the fishing a bit. But yeah, after that encounter happened, I stopped fishing out there completely. I actually found another river system. It was about half an hour drive from my house to go fish at, and that's when I had the encounters with Dogman.
So you keep hinting at that. I know everybody at home's probably biting at the bit. But yeah, so do you have another Yowie encounter, or are we moving on to Dogman?
Nah, look, after these Dogman encounters too, like, it might have been a Dogman, these encounters, not a Yowie. And without seeing that creature bluff charge me and that,
Right.
like, a
You
lot of
don't
people
know.
said maybe it was a Dogman, and yeah, no definitive answer to it. And I know since I've had these Dogman encounters, my dad even said to me, he goes, you know what? I've had these encounters. He goes, you know what? When you're a kid, and I remember as soon as he told me, it was like it was blocked in my memory. When you're a kid, you woke up one night. Dad used to do the milk run, so he'd get up at 2 o'clock in the morning and go deliver milk. And so he used to sleep up the front of the house in the spare room, so he didn't wake Mum up every morning going to work. So during the week he'd sleep there, then he'd go back to their bed over the weekend when he wasn't working. But I woke up one night and come in and woke him up and said, Dad, there was a dog at the window. And I said to him, now, like I said, when he was telling me, that's when I remembered. And I remember I heard a noise at the window, and when I looked out the window, pitch black. Well, there's a moonlight, so I could just sort of see. But there was a dog, which I said to Dad was a cock dog, which is German Shepherds. That's how I explained it to him when I was like 5 or 6 or whatever it was. He said, and I said, there was a cock dog, and it was standing there with its paws on my windowsill and looking in at me. When I pulled the blinds back, there was this dog looking me in the eyes. And Dad said, how do you know that wasn't a Dogman? Because he laughed at me and said, oh, whatever. And I jumped into bed with him because I was too scared to go back there. He goes, just get into bed, go to sleep. And like 2 minutes after that, there was a bang and a clang and a pot plant got broken. Something ran through the garden and took off. And he jumped up and went out and went, shit, there must have been a dog there. And after these encounters and me telling him, he goes, you know what? Remember that? And I was like, holy shit, how did I forget about that? And he said, maybe this creature's always been around you. And that could be what I'm having encounters with all the time. Like, but yeah, I've never heard of anyone looking out the window and having a dog lean on the windowsill and looking at him. Like, so maybe this creature had been around me. And
that is absolutely terrifying. But
yeah,
there are several encounters. So for Michigan, like the Michigan Dogman's pretty big here in the U.S.
Yeah.
They look in windows. They do this, like, they will look in your car. Like, there's people that have been sleeping in their car, and they wake up, and there's just this giant canid face just looking right at them. No thank you. I don't think I'd ever leave the house again.
Yeah. And it's funny because when I was a kid, I was a bad sleeper. Like, I'd always run into Mum and Dad's bed and stuff like that all the time because I'd hear stuff at the side. There's nothing outside, there's nothing there. And I was laughed at Dad. I said, you know what? All this stuff that's happened to me now, maybe there was stuff going on back then and I wasn't just being a little sook, you know what I mean? Like, it was legit stuff happening that was
stuff
around me. And like, I don't live far from where my Aboriginal ancestors live, so maybe that's why this creature's being drawn to me, is maybe it's picking up on them, or it was their way. Like I said, when I had these encounters with it, like I said, it was about a week later after that Yowie or whatever, this encounter I had with that creature. It was in a national park named after my Aboriginal ancestors, and when everything that happened there, everyone said maybe that was their way of waking you up or getting you to... Because since then, that's when I started going to the land council and trying to learn about my family and that. And I was like, maybe that was their way of getting me involved in what I'm supposed to do in life or whatever. But yeah, but with them, the Yowie encounter there, like I was saying, that infrasound, it freaked me out. Like, I sort of jumped ahead of you. If you wanted to ask me some questions about that
keep
before I
going.
get into the Dogman, you can go. But yeah, but anyway, so after this Dogman encounter, like I said, the first one, I didn't know Dogman existed, and I even thought the first encounter I had at this location was a Yowie because I didn't believe in them. I used to see Dogman on the YouTube, and it would be an eyeball from 500 meters away and recorded on a potato, and I'd laugh and go, yeah, right, a freaking big werewolf in the bush. That's an eyeball. It could be your
recorded
mate,
on a
potato.
potato.
Could be a deer in it. Yeah, that's what they always
know.
look like. They're 500 meter zoom. Like,
I know exactly what pictures you're talking about.
Yeah, And it's like, what the hell is that? Like, that's nothing. So I used to laugh about them all the time, but I've had this encounter, and a lot of odd, like, strangeness happened that day. And I think it was about 2 weeks after that Yowie encounter, because I started going to this new location. I'd gone fishing a few times, and one of the trips I swore I seen something up the top of a big gum tree. It was too far away I didn't want to get close anyway. It looked like, I don't know if you guys have mistletoe, like in America, whereas like a bird will take the seed to a tree, and that it'll be mistletoe, and it takes over the tree, and it sort of strangulates and kills the tree. That's what they call it over here, mistletoe stuff. It's like, it looks like a big knot, and it will actually take all the nutrients and everything out of that tree that it's been planted on. Like, it's just, we'll say a bird's taking a crap there and their seeds sprouted, and it sort of, strangulates the tree. And they have these big whooping, sort of nearly like willow tree leaves that come off it, like this mistletoe stuff. And we have a lot of that over here. And I thought it was one of them up there, up in top of this tree. And I sort of laughed and went, freak, that mistletoe looks like it's got a face on it. Anyway, I've kept fishing, come back about 10 minutes later and went, that mistletoe's gone from that tree. So maybe it was a creature up at the top of this tree. And I've gone to another spot, and I was going to go try this location. I'd planned on it, and I went there the day before and went, yep, this is where I'm going to go. I'm going to get over here, get there leave home about 5 o'clock. Takes half an hour to get there. I'd stop, get a coffee, get there. By the time I set up, it'd be about 6 o'clock. The sun's up, I'm cheering. So I've gone, yep, that's my idea for tomorrow. And I'd gotten up that next morning. I got down to the old local Macca's to get a coffee and went, crap, I forgot my wallet. I don't ever forget my wallet, because we're going to have our fishing license on us at all times in Australia, or they can confiscate all your gear and you won't get it back. So I'm not losing me $1,000 worth of fishing gear and my kayak. So I've always got my wallet. Got the Macca's, like I said, had no wallet. Crap, had to go home. Got that. Went and got the coffee. Headed over to this location I was going to go fishing at. I got there, gates closed, and I feel like, what the hell? It's a national park, but it's not like our national parks are usually like you can't go fishing and stuff. So it's a national park, but you're allowed to go in there and fish and stuff. And so it's not a full blown one, sort of like a state forest, but they call it national park here. But the gates are always closed at 6 o'clock, 8 o'clock at night in summertime, and open again at 7 o'clock in the morning. But I'd been going to these locations, and the gates are always open. And for some reason that morning that gate was locked, and I went, oh, what am I going to do now? And I was thinking about, my father-in-law had been telling me about another spot. It was about 5-minute drive down the road. He said, we used to go fishing here when we were kids. We used to go swimming here as kids, and no one ever went there other than the locals that lived in the area. So no one knew about it. I was like, that could be an awesome spot to go. So stuff it, I'm going there for a fish. There shouldn't be a gate there. And as I've got to this gateway, I've gone to drive in the gate, and I was listening to music on my Spotify in the car, and my Spotify glitched out, and it went to a song that I still can't find anywhere. I can't find on my Spotify or anywhere on the internet, and the words said, you know, this is a bad idea in the chorus. It was like a chorus, and it sung it a couple of times, and then it just stopped and went back to the song that I was listening to, and I went, whoa, that's a bit weird. And after all this happened, it's sort of obviously tied into this, but so I pulled up, got out, got my kayak out, got my gear ready. I thought it was only a little trip down to the water, and it actually turned out to be like a half an hour of bush bashing with the kayak. Absolute torture to get down there. But I started heading down. I got about 100 meters down from the thing and went, crap, I forgot my GoPro. Which, like I said, another odd thing, I had the GoPro chest mount on already, but I hadn't got the GoPro out of my ute and connected it up, which doesn't happen. I never make these mistakes, because I don't go fishing often. I love it, and when I do, I have everything lined out overnight. I have all my rods ready with the first lures I'm going to use connected up, like full anal. Like, it's once I hit the water, I'm ready to go. And all these things kept happening to me, and I finally, like I said, got in the water. It took me about half an hour to get. It was about 300 meters from the ute into the water. It took me half an hour. Got in there, got everything setted, and I just went to paddle off, and I was stuck in the sand. It was that shallow, and this is a waste of time. Why did I do this? And I had to drag myself through the sand. Got finally got to a deeper spot and it just dropped off. It was awesome. And I looked around and it was perfect. It was like my own little oasis. It was bloody... The water was perfectly clean. The bush looked heaps good, and I was like, how nice is this? It's like my own little oasis. There's no one around, nothing. First cast I had, I'm winding this surface lure back, and I was having five or six fish at the same time trying to hit this lure. I'd hook one, take the hook out, chuck it back, throw it. I was fishing along the same. Every cast I did, that lure would hit the water. That was happening. I was like, this is like no one's ever been here before. And after that bush bash I did, the average person going fishing in their kayak or even going in their kayak's not going through that to get here. And this isn't a well-known location, so people wouldn't be going, oh, we'll go there and bush bash and get to that spot because there's fish there. I'd never heard of anyone going to this location before. So I'm paddling along, and there kept being, off in the distance, I kept hearing a heap of cockatoos going off. If you heard the cockatoos go nuts, they're freaking loud and they go crazy, and thought nothing of it. And I was paddling along, and down on my left, out of nowhere, I sort of seen this grey flash through the bush, and I picked it as something. I had my sunnies on, and maybe something, just the sun flashed or something, maybe seen it, and I sort of thought nothing of it again and kept paddling. And I seen this massive big rock in the water further down. I went, that's it, I'm going to there. I'm going to target that. There'll be fish there for sure. So I've got there, cast at it, sure enough, hooked a fish. That was it. Brought it in. And then out of nowhere, so I brought that fish in, chucked it out, turned to me right and cast to the right bank. As soon as I cast that lure, it hit the water, something off in the bushland come charging through the bush, and it sounded like a bulldozer coming through. It was smashing branches. You could hear the footsteps and each swinging each arm, hitting branches, smashing them out of the way. And I was like, what the hell's that? And it stopped just out of sight and just started roaring absolutely off its head. And at that time, as it running down, I'd hooked a fish and I'm winding it in, and I'm going, what the hell's that? Got it in, and I've got it into the kayak. I'm trying to get the hooks out, and that's when this thing started roaring at me. So I'm panicking, going, I've got to get out of here, get out of here. I'm getting the hooks out. Just as I'm doing this, I heard this voice in my head, and it said, go now or you'll die. And it wasn't my voice, it wasn't my thoughts, it was a voice I'd never heard before. I've got the hooks out, chucked this fish into the water, and as this fish hit the water, this creature went to a whole nother level. The roars got louder, you could feel it in your chest. It was weird, it was like the roar it was doing was loud, and it sort of sounded like a lion. But then it would go, oh, and then it'd go, it'd take a breath in, but that breath in, its lung capacity was obviously that big that when it took a breath in, it was like another different vocalization. It nearly sounded like a grizzly bear. So I'm here, I'm petrified trying to get this, like I said, got this fish, threw it in the water, and it went crazy then. It got louder, it started smashing stuff, and I turned around and paddled, and this thing was still in my head saying, go now or you will die. And I'd got about 50 metres up the river, and nothing. It just stopped. Didn't hear anything behind me. I didn't stop. I kept going, and I'd gotten back up to where I got out, and was getting out of the water and jumped out, chucked me rods up on the hill, turned around to grab my kayak, and something hit my fishing rods and knocked them over. So whether this creature had been following me the whole time and got there and having a joke with me then and threw something at me to get me out of there, but that happened. I grabbed the kayak, and usually I'd just drag it through the bush, and I don't really care. It's a real old one. It wouldn't get wrecked anyway, but that happened. I chucked the kayak on my shoulder, grabbed me rods, and I ran. That half an hour, I think it only took me about 5-10 minutes to get back to the car, and I got up there and I was absolutely packing it. I sat around for about 40 minutes in. I got everything straight in the ute. I got in the ute and I was sitting there, and when I was getting in the ute, that's when I realised, like, holy shit, I had the GoPro going that whole time. So I've recorded that whole encounter. So I'm sitting there, and with me being there, I know what it sounded like, but I put it on YouTube, and YouTube's lost all the quality, and you can't sort of hear the roar in it. I can hear it. I even took it home and showed my missus, and she could hear the roar straight away. She's like, wow, that's crazy. But you put it on the internet and you lose all the quality out of it. But if you listen enough, you can see it on my YouTube. The first video I've got on there is actually the original footage of that encounter. And after listening to it, even I got there on my phone before I could leave, because I couldn't move properly. I I still do. I get like anxiety and really bad, and my anxiety was that bad, like, and the adrenaline, I couldn't drive, so I was looking up stuff like light sounds in the Australian bush. I looked up kangaroos, koalas, pigs, everything. Koalas in mating season are pretty creepy sounding and stuff too. But so I've looked up all these noises, couldn't find anything bar one roar sounded like a lion, another roar sounded like a grizzly bear. And I got home and I was crapping myself. I'd message me mate and talk to him and saying, look, this is what's happened. I think a yowie has charged me at this spot now, and we were talking about it and stuff, and I had another encounter with this creature 3 days later, and that's when I found out that it wasn't a yowie, it was actually a dogman. But yeah, it was wild, and like I said, that voice in my head, that wasn't me. That was, I don't know if it was this creature or being in this national park to do with my Aboriginal ancestors. Was it them coming through warning me to say get out of there or what? But yeah, it would have been the scariest thing I've ever encountered. I've had a few things happen since then that were worse, but that certain spot, it's only about 10 meters wide, that thing, and that, like where that thing charged me, and it was that big. The way it was running through, even without a clean run to the bank, I reckon it could have jumped and landed in my kayak, and if not, it was that shallow, it could have walked to me. But same thing as that when we were saying before about the farm, like, I don't know if anyone's ever been down there in a kayak, and that might have just happened because the creature was like, holy shit, there's someone here, and what the hell are they doing here? They're not supposed to be here. We've never seen them before. Or like they'd never seen a person before, but whatever it was, it didn't want me there, and I listened and I got out of there.
Yeah, I mean, that's... Dogman encounters are always like 10 times scarier than Bigfoot or Yowie, or
Yeah.
you know, big traditional Bigfoot encounters. But they roar. Oh my gosh! Like I forgot that I had to ask questions and stuff after. I was so enthralled by the encounter. No, I don't know if I would have been taking my kayak with me though. You may be a better fisherman than me. I think I would have been. I think I'd have been back in the truck before I was even thinking.
Yeah, it was just like I said, because I go that much, it was just like I'll pick it up and run with it. Mm-hmm. There's too much money there, but I think it's just, I reckon it's just followed me back to that spot just to make sure I was leaving, and then it was sort of because I was taking a bit of time to get out of the kayak because I was crapping it, and maybe it was its way of saying pull your finger out, mate, and get out of there. I ran up there. I've never been so scared in my life, and got up there, I thought I was going to die. It was all uphill and stuff. It was a nightmare.
I bet. It sounds horrible. I don't know if I'd...
Yeah.
I don't know if I'd be going back again ever. And you went back 3 days later?
Yeah, and it actually ended up being Boxing Day. So 3 days later was Boxing Day, and I didn't go to this spot. As the crow flies, I didn't realise as the crow flies it's not far, but it was about 15-20-minute drive difference, like in the location. I thought, I'm all right here. As the crow flies, it was only about 12 Ks. And I was like, after this happened, I was like, you idiot, 12 Ks is not far at all. Like, and the river's all bushland, like it could easily get to here. And so that was the next encounter 3 days later. Do you want me to get into that now?
I'm just enjoying listening.
Yeah. So this spot, like I said, it's about 12 Ks away. I'd gotten there and I got to this spot and I just got a new kayak. I said, I'm going to go here. It's away from all this crap. How good's this? I'm going to go here, try out my new kayak. Got my gear out, got in the water. It was about 6 o'clock, sun was up. Like, how good's this? Perfect. I loved the kayak. The kayak was awesome. Like, this is awesome. Nothing's happening here. Nothing's going to happen because I'm closer to population. Like, 500 metres up the road, there's like 50,000 homes. Like, I was like, nothing's going to happen here at all. The other spot was close to houses, but not as heavily populated as this. And both sides of the river, this spot had houses and stuff. And so I'm fishing around, stuffing around my new kayak for about 10 minutes going, this is awesome. All the crap that's happened to me the last couple of years, there's nothing's going on here. This is perfect. 10 minutes into the trip, I hear a twig snap in the bush. And I thought nothing of it. As you said, we got kangaroos and stuff like that around here. And in the kayaks in Australia, like it'd be a shame over there, but in the kayaks, they're so stealth-like that I can paddle up. I paddled up before on a little kangaroo or wallaby. Without them hearing me, they've got their back to the water and leant out and poked them with the kayak paddle. And you see them take off through the bush like maniacs because they haven't heard me coming. And so I was like, oh yeah, might be a little wallaby there or whatever. I just didn't pay any attention to it. Kept fishing along, and I went to seen another spot I wanted to go target. And as soon as I took a stroke with the paddle, I heard something massive in the bush take a step. And I'd realised after about 3 or 4 steps, every stroke I was taking, this thing was taking a step. And I was like, something's going on there. That's a bit odd. And I thought, I'll head back to the car. As I've gone to head back, I've realised this creature's on the same side as my car. By the time I get back there, it could be trouble. And if you head about 2 k's down the river from where I was, you come to a big like a city. People walk along the side of the river. They got bike tracks and that. They drink all their coffees down at the water. Said, I'll head that way if anything happens, and at least I can get down there, ring me missus or me brother-in-law. They can come pick me up. And like I said, I'd take a few strokes. I'd take 3 strokes. This thing would take 3 steps. And as I said before, I train race horses. When you get a crazy, like I do harness racing, and when you get a crazy one, you take them bush. You get one that's spooky and likes to gallop a lot, and it's not supposed to gallop. You take it bush, get it around the animals, get it in the bush, just any spooky noises, you get bomb-proof them. They won't gallop anymore, they're safe and all that. And so we've done that. I've heard the noise of a 500-kilo animal walking through sand, through bush, through grass track, like asphalt, everything. And this creature that was walking and following me sounded sounded exactly the same weight as a big horse. So this thing sounded like a 500-kilo creature going through the bush, but it was on 2 feet. And so I'd paddle, hear a couple of steps, stop, and I could stop for a minute, and it would stop for a minute. As soon as I took that first stroke, again after that, it would walk. And I'd gotten about 1 kilometre down the river doing that and going, oh no, I'm stuffed here. Like this there's a creature over here too. And out to my left, I actually noticed something black in the bush. And I thought, what the hell is that? So I pulled my phone out and zoomed in, took a couple of photos, chucked my phone back in the kayak and took off. And as soon as I started doing my paddles again, I stopped hearing the noise. I was like, what the hell? That's odd. That's not walking with me anymore. And I've gotten, say, 500 metres down the river and pulled up on the right. Thought, I'm going to stop here, I'm going to have a smoke, have something to drink, like have some water and that. I'm freaked out, like whatever that was, thinking, what am I going to do here? I pulled my phone out and had a look at these photos, and you just see the head of a big black, what I describe as a big black German Shepherd dog's head in the bush. And that scared the crap out of me because I was like, what am I going to do here? I'm going to head down there. And I was like, I don't know if this thing's still there. I thought, stuff it, I'm heading for the car. I'm going as quick as I could. And like I said, I hadn't heard anything in that whole trip back to the car. I never heard another sound of this creature in the bush. And to this day, maybe it realised I'd seen it when I took the photos or whatever it was. It might have went, oh, I was stuffed up here. He's seen me. So it didn't harass me, but that paddle back to the car, I would have won the Olympic gold medal if I was at the Olympics. So I paddled that fast, got back there, chucked everything in the car, didn't even strap down my kayak. I just took off, got home, said to me missus, said, look at this photo, can you see this? And she goes, it looks like a big, like a dog or like a monkey sort of thing. I was like, yeah, I know. And what I'd estimated this creature to be about 7 foot tall. And since that's happened, as I said, my friends make documentaries, and they had a new documentary. It's just come out now. I'd spoken to one of my mates, and he said, oh, we'll get onto Attila, and he's doing a documentary. Maybe we can go out. He would come with us, and we'll go and investigate this location. After going back to this spot with these guys, this creature wasn't 7 foot tall like I thought. You go into the bushland, and it's from the water, you're looking at it going, oh yeah, there's big trees and all this. It looks like the bank sloped right up, and I thought, oh, this creature's about 7 foot. But being back there, this thing was at least 10 foot tall, if not 12 foot tall. I think, what was it, we measured it, it was, it was about 10 foot tall. And it was absolutely crazy. It's like, oh, people have said, oh, it's just a dog up a tree. I was like, I've never seen a German Shepherd up a tree. And we went in there, like I said in this documentary, you go in there, there was trees, but it was all, it looked like bush, but it wasn't. It was like vines, and you go in there and it was empty. Underneath the canopy, it was empty. And there was nothing that I could have stood on to get my head to that location of that photo where the creature's head was. And we went back and we've done comparison photos to make sure it wasn't pareidolia and all that. But that day, that was when I went, holy shit, these dog-man creatures are real. And being so close to that other encounter that was obviously, and the way it went, how ferocious this thing was going through the bush, I'm tipping it was the same creature, if not the same pack. Then there's these dogmen over at this location. But I got back, showed me missus, showed a heap of people, and they all said that looks like some people said it sort of looks like a pig maybe, or I've had someone say it looked like a bird. And if you've seen the photos, there's no way that's a bird's head.
Now this is the one that the photo that's on your YouTube,
dog.
right?
Yeah.
So yeah,
It's a big dog or a big wolf.
yeah, it
head.
doesn't look like a bird or nothing like that. I agree. It's
No.
it's definitely canid. Like I could see the monkey,
Yeah,
like or big ape. You know, like baboons kind of have that similar.
Well, that's the thing. It had
Yeah.
a protruding snout,
Yeah.
like that dog-like face, and people said maybe it was sort of like a baboony face or that. But how I see it, it's like a big, massive dog. It looked like a black German Shepherd or a
Looks
big
like
wolf.
like a black,
But-
long-haired German Shepherd. Like
Yeah, but
yeah.
like I said, I've never seen one that could climb a tree, and there was nothing I could have climbed up, let alone one of them dogs climbing up to get
Right.
to that locate, like that spot. It was definitely, it was standing there. It was about 10 foot tall, and yeah, it shattered my mind. It was like, holy shit, these things are real. What else are we being told don't exist or out there? And I looked it up, and I haven't seen photos like I got of this creature out there like that looked that good. And my dad still rings me nearly every day. He goes, holy shit, that's still one of the best photos I've seen of one of these creatures. And like I said, you get on there, you look, and there's an eye from 400 meters away, and it's a dog man. But I've seen this creature and I know it's there, and we've been back there and found other stuff in the bush that I don't think it actually got shown in the documentary. But there was it looked like a den where all the vines had grown over this stuff, but it was opened up like something had been going in there, and you look in there and it was all patted down. And so whether this creature was there by itself or it showed itself to me because there was maybe it had pups in the area, because it sort of didn't look like this creature could have got in there, but it might have been pups there. So it might have showed itself to say, hey, look at me. So I didn't see what was here. Yowies and Sasquatch and like Bigfoot and that doing the same thing. You'll see one here while something else, like on the left,
Right.
and something's going on the right. It's
Right.
there, getting you to look over here so something else could get out of there. So whether this creature was by itself and just game as, like this was 7:30 in the morning, the sun was up, this is in the daytime, and this creature's following me and looking at me through the bush. Like it's a whole different kettle of fish when you look at Dogman and Yowies. It's nuts.
So what is? That's incredible, and then the photo looks really good too. I advise everybody at home go check out the YouTube and stuff so you can see this photo, because it looks like you said, like a German Shepherd in a tree, but it's not that.
Yeah.
You know, but it's very canid. It looks like a dog
Yeah.
that's just poking out, and it's
The shape of it looks like it's muscly as too,
Right.
like you can sort of see its neck and that, but it's like you said, it's a dog, but it's not.
right.
Like,
What are your opinions on the Dogman? What do you think it is? Do you think it's a full flesh and blood creature? Do you think it's kind of a mix? Do you think it's more supernatural?
I don't know. It stumps me. Like I said before this happened, I thought it was made up crap coming from over in America. People just dramatizing everything, and once I seen that, I went, holy crap, these are real. But this thing was flesh and blood. You could hear it moving through the bush. But then with that first encounter, with all the things going wrong, like me forgetting me wallet and me music changing and hearing that voice in my head, like that's not something flesh and blood does. So
See, the music changing thing is. What'd you say the song was saying again?
it said, this is a bad idea. And I've had people say to me, maybe them things happening to you, like you forgetting your wallet, that gateway being closed, because that gate, if I'd gone in there and went back, would have taken me to this location anyway, just from a different direction. And then that music changing, they said maybe with it being on the land that belongs to my ancestors, maybe that was my ancestors warning me, saying, hey, it's a bad idea, we don't want you going down here. Or somehow this creature knew that I was coming and didn't want me there. But whatever it was, that was some of the woo that goes on, and it's the first time I sort of had that stuff happen, like music glitching out on me and stuff. It freaked me. For it to go back to the same song that I was listening to at the same spot, like it was like something planted it there.
That's the detail right there that takes it from a normal-ish encounter. I get nothing in this field's normal, but a more classical encounter to that more supernatural encounter, to where, I mean, and there is that connection here in the U.S. with the Dogman and our Native Americans, whether it's a direct connection or not. They seem to be hanging around their burial mounds and all this stuff. Yeah. So I wonder if that's like the same thing with the Aborigines. It's this, thing is connected.
Nothing. There was nothing. Like, we have found things that sort of allude to Dogman. Like, there's a book you can get. It's called it was a giant dingo man, and then there is a story out west, like right out in the desert, of this dog-like creature, like a werewolf, that was eating people, but it was sort of like, there was like this witch lady or something like that, like a medicine lady or whatever, like whatever you call them for the Aboriginals, but she was getting this creature to kill people. So it was sort of like a totem, or if that's what you call, like it was like manifested that maybe this creature was real. But then you look at, like, if you type in bunyip, if you're on your computer now, type in bunyip, the first thing, one of the first images come up is a cartoon picture. It looks like a massive dog sitting in the water. So maybe that's why there isn't so many stories of these dogman creatures here, because people are misidentifying them for different creatures, whether it bunyip or yowies. Like, if I'd seen just something in the bush, I hadn't seen it. Like I said, the first encounter, I thought it was a yowie. People could have been having encounters with this creature, but putting it down to yowies or bunyips, or the people that are having encounters with this creature aren't going home to tell people they've had an encounter with this creature. Like, they might have been getting taken out, eaten, or whatever. Right. Like, so it's hard. And I'd never heard of a dogman encounter in Australia. After I've had the encounter, I've spoken to a few of my friends, been on a couple of podcasts, and a couple of them have said, we've had encounters, and we've had people on our show talking about them. But still, there would only be a handful of encounters I've heard of. And I don't know where they've come from. I don't know. There's no, like I said, there's no lore. There's a couple of stories and stuff, but there's no cave paintings of these creatures. There's no full-blown stories of these creatures in Aboriginal lore. So I don't know if they've, like I said, haven't turned up here, or people are having encounters or have been having for thousands of years that just haven't survived, or like survived the encounter, or they've said, oh, that's a bunyip. Because all my encounters are always around water. Bunyips are apparently seen around water. Mm-hmm. So there's two things that are already the same. Like I said, there's people encountered bunyips that said they look like dogs. They've had people, yowies with dog faces on them and stuff. So there is documentation, but there's not that foolproof like the way the Aboriginals talk about yowies and Junjuddy and that. Like, it's not in their lore like these creatures. Like, I don't think they are even in America, are they? Like you said, do the Indians have stories of them, or are they?
Yes and no. So the Native American tribes. Once again, everybody at home, I say this: I'm not a Native American expert, because there's tons and tons of tribes here native to the U.S. But there's everything from skinwalkers out west to even some stuff in the northern, like the Algonquin tribe talks about the Wendigo, could be related to Dogman. You know, seeing something and creating a lore behind it. But there are stories that kind of talk about this. They call them most time shapeshifters, where they are half human, half dog kind of descriptions. And they're never good. Yeah. None of the Native American stories about it, they're never anything good. But the exact opposite for Sasquatch. They have Sasquatch story. And, like, a lot of the Sasquatch stories are neutral or positive.
Yep.
And almost
Yep.
all of the Dogman stories in Native American lore are very, very negative. They're nothing you want to be around. They involve curses. They involve, just kind of the bad juju of the world. Like they're a byproduct of when you start dabbling in, with evil or stuff. And maybe that's why they're starting to show up in Australia, is that it may be, I don't know if it's for Australia, it may be the European settlers bringing it over. It may be because we think that some of the Fae folk in North America came over from Europe. Like they just followed the people that had the legends and lore about them. But I don't know. You're definitely I've never heard of one.
No, you look at Dogman, werewolves. You look at all the stories of werewolves in Europe and that back however long. Like settlers come here, they could have been with them, or somehow I don't know how they've got here, but they could have been here the whole time. You think, oh, there's no such thing as werewolves or that. That's what this thing was. You look at it and it looks like a werewolf. And just because you haven't seen it shapeshift or that to say that it's a werewolf, that's obviously like what Dogman are. I reckon they're the same. They've got to be the same, I reckon. And they're just... It's unbelievable. It makes you think, what the hell else is out there?
Right.
Like, if the werewolves are right, the werewolves are real, where are the vampires? Where are this and where are that? Like, all the stuff, and it gets so bloody crazy, and it still spins me out to this day that I actually seen the creatures, and they were terrifying, but like I said again, it could have got me easily. Like, I was a kilometre from my car in my kayak. In Australia, I'm not paddling down the river with a gun. I've got the second encounter, I had a big Bowie knife because I went and bought it after the first encounter, because the first encounter at this location, I didn't even have a knife on me. I had a pair of long-nosed pliers. Like, I was like, that's not going to help me. So at least I had a knife this time, but even still, like, that creature wants to get me. That little knife's not doing nothing. Like, it could have got me, and I think there's been a few times since it could have got me again, and I've been back there during the day to the first location. We've gone back, there's a park at the top where you park the cars, and so I've been back there. There's a good fish and chip shop over there. We go get something to eat, go there, and have the kids play at the park. And there was one day we went for a walk down to the water, and my daughter said, "Hey Dad, can you hear that?" And in the distance you could hear the roar that I got from this creature when it run down the bush at me. And I said, that sounds like that roar that I had from that. I said, that animal. And she goes, "Hey Dad, that animal, it must be your friend. He's saying hello to you." And I said, "Don't say that. I'm out of here. Let's get going." But being an innocent little girl, you know what I mean? She's
Kids
like, that's your friend. He's saying hello.
The scariest things.
Yeah. And I was like, "I don't think he's my friend, Bubba. Let's get back to the car." And it was a couple of weeks later, I went back again, and I got out of the car and I was getting the stuff out, and my missus was out. She was getting my son out of the car, and she looked at me. She goes, "Can you hear that?" And she was white. And sure enough, as she said that, I'd stopped and everything was quiet. In the distance, you could hear that howl again. She's like, it freaking knows you're here. I was like, I think it does. I don't know if it can smell me or what, or it knows I'm here, or it's just coincidence. But so I've been back a couple of times, and every time I've heard something. And we went back with my friends to the first location when they were doing the documentary. And on the other side of the water at night, we were down there with the cameras, and with their thermals, they couldn't see anything. But at the top of the hill on the ridge line, I could see these two amber eyes without a light on them. They were glowing in the dark. They were like an ambery yellow sort of colour. They weren't red. They were that ambery colour. And they were looking at me. I could see it blinking and putting its head side to side of this tree. And they couldn't pick up anything on their thermal cameras or that, but I could see it, and it would move to the next tree and look at me. And before I'd seen the eyes, I had that feeling like we were being watched, and we seen the eyes, and some other stuff happen, and that was it. Nothing definitive where we seen it, but I seen these two massive glowing eyes. Like, they were big. They were like our 20-cent pieces. I don't know if you got coins about that big. Like, they were big eyes from a big distance away. And so there's been other encounters with this creature over there, but like I said, nothing that other than that first one, I thought I was going to die, but it never come close enough to do it. Like, nothing's actually happened to me there, but it's it's a lot scarier than the stuff I've had happen with the yowies. Like, that was scary enough, but and then when you know what it is, if you've had an encounter over there again and you know what's in that location, it's bloody scary.
And that seems to track with what happens over here with Sasquatch and Dogman. You know, Dogman encounters are always... Dogman encounters are always over the top. Like, they're always terrifying. They're always horrible.
Yeah.
And not saying there's some
staring
really...
at people in the bush smiling at them.
Oh, my gosh. There's the Michigan story where literally... the Tennessee story where he's looking in the van window and he's smiling at people.
Yeah,
that's worse than anything.
It's gross.
Once you see, seeing a
gross.
Dogman
Like
alone, and now it's because it knows what it's doing.
Yeah.
You know, it knows like that's Dogman is one thing I never want to see. Before we got into this field, me and Jay, I always thought Dogman was just a misid'd Bigfoot. That people just seen a Bigfoot.
So
but after getting into it, talking to people like yourself and stuff like that, I 100% believe Dogman's real. I don't personally think
different.
Sorry, I don't personally think it's flesh and blood as much as a Sasquatch. I do think there's a physical aspect to them, but I definitely think there's a much more spiritual or supernatural aspect as well. Because we have stories here in the U.S. of people shooting them. And not a lot happens.
Yeah, and just keep coming.
Yeah.
They just keep walking, or they just turn around and walk off. And it's funny because I've been back to this spot middle of the day to go for a fish where I got the photos. I don't head the same direction. I head back up the river away from there. But I've been there and there's been like Hindu priests there. They'll collect the water out of the river in their big urns, and they're doing like a prayer on it and stuff. Like, obviously for like, I don't know if Hindus do baptism, whatever it is, like the Indians with the turbans, I think they're the Hindu sort of religion, but they're getting water out of this river and doing chants and that to this water, and then putting in their car and obviously taking it to, I sound bad, but I don't know if they have whatever it is for Hindu christenings or baptism or whatever it is. They're obviously using this, and that's, I've mentioned to them before when I've seen them in different spots. They're like, oh, it's for your christening. Like, they say it like that's for your christening. Like, so obviously it's not for them, but whatever it is, whether that has something to do with it, or I know one side of the river here, like where I had this encounter, was a tip, like right in front of behind the bush that I got the photo, there's a big tip there for a lot of the area. Like, there's 100 to 200,000 people within 5-minute drive that live there. So it's a massive tip for all their rubbish and that. The other side of the river is an army barracks. And I've heard like a tip, like a garbage, like they take all the rubbish to, like...
Oh, okay, so, sorry.
Like a dump,
language barrier.
Dump site. Yeah. A big dump site there. And then the other side of the river's army barracks, and I know a lot of encounters with these Dogman creatures have been around army barracks.
Yeah, never trust anything around the military camps. Literally, we have so much stuff in the U.S. that literally you look and, like, we've had people come on and say that, like, we've had Dogman encounters, we've had giant birds and Mothman, and then I'll be like, is there happen to be a military Navy base nearby? He's like, oh yeah, there's 10 miles down the road, or it was on the other side of the fence.
Well, this location, like where I had the first encounter, and this one, like where I got the photos, the other side of the river, it's army barracks, it's national park, but the army barracks is there, and you're not allowed on that land because it's army barracks. There's signs up saying there is live mines and stuff in the bush. I don't think there is. I think it's just to keep people out. So it's a national park. What's that?
No, I just was, keep going.
Yeah, so it's national park. You should be able to go there because it's army barracks. It's all cordoned off. You can't go in there at all. But, so I don't know if these creatures are coming to this area, like they're in this area because they know they're not going to be harassed, or it's something to do with the army, which I don't know. Not over here anyway. I think this might be just a bit of a coincidence because it is right where it was. If you go past the army barracks, it's thousands and thousands of acres of forest that you can go into, and that it's just that's location there. But I've heard a lot of stories. I love the confessionals, and I know a lot of stories that Tony's talked about, of even portals and that, and people seeing the dogmen come out of portals and all the real wild stuff. It always seems to be dogman's around. Like, it can't be just flesh and blood, but I like to think that because it makes me feel a bit better.
Makes you feel better.
Scare me, but yeah, but there's a lot of wild stuff that goes on around them and this creature and the locations for sure.
Well, you've successfully, like, it's made my skin crawl at the howl and everything like that. That would be so scary.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else you want to add? I think.
No, well, I've started going to this other spot that I've caught 2 creatures. If you have a look on the YouTube, there's one day I went there, I caught this creature on my thermal. I just got one. It was only a cheap one. It was about $700. It doesn't see very far, but it does pick up heat signatures and that. And there's one video you see the creature sort of, it's only looked real skinny and that, and people have said maybe it was a rake or something, like, and I haven't really looked into it, but it's just a little thing sort of looking out there. But as soon as I turned the thing on, I basically turned it, seen it, all my batteries went flat. Like the thermal, I get 6 hours, like, they can't see it with the podcast, it's only a little one like that, but it's got 6 hours of battery. I hit record, and it come up straight away low battery, and I got about a minute and a half, 2 minutes record, and it died. I've got this big Sony 4K camera that's got night vision on it and that, like, it's same thing. I get 5 or 6 hours battery. It didn't go flat, but my infrared torch I used to boost my night vision, it went flat, and I lost it. I put my headlamp, I've got a headlamp, cost me a couple $100. It's same thing, heaps of hours of battery life. It went dead within 30 seconds, and that's when I turned the car on and left, because I was like, my car's got a battery in it and I don't want it to go to in case I can't leave. So I've had that happen there, and I've come back again and caught a massive creature at the end of the track away from me. I got it on the footage and you can't see it moving that, but when I was looking through the eyepiece, because you can connect my thing up to my phone so you can look at it through the phone and just sort of pan around, while it was connecting up, I couldn't hit record on it, but so I'm looking through it, just having a look, and I seen this massive creature stand up out of the bush right in front of me, and it doesn't set off a heat signature. It's just a big black mass, and you put it on, like, it's the black to white heat, and then you go the white to black heat, like the different ones, and it doesn't change to, it's like it's putting on a heat signature, but you can still see that outline. And like, if I hadn't seen this creature stand up, like rise up out of the bush in front of me, I wouldn't have even known it was there. I would have said it was a tree or something like that. So that's happened there. And then I've gone back the last couple of weeks. I don't know if I've sent any of the footage of that. I know my new video's come out, but I've got another video I'm about to release when I get off today. I'm going to finish doing it and then post it up, of going back to this location and finding a den or a nest. And then when I leave there, something within 2 meters jumps up and runs on 2 feet away from me. You can just hear it running off through the bush, and it scared the absolute crap out of me. I was by myself, and in the footage, even like, because I had my GoPro going, you can hear my voice is rattled, I can't breathe properly. It scared the absolute crap out of me. So I've had a lot of going on out there. So hopefully in the next couple of months, I'm going to get me mates, we're going to start going there a lot and try and get some more footage. There's a river, same thing again, it's around a river, and there's big massive sandstone cliffs either side, and I know you can come from the other side as well, so we're going to try and stake out a thing where we sit there around night on both sides of the river, because maybe these creatures are coming up out of the sandstone, like, cliffs. There might be caves and stuff, which there usually is with sandstone and that, so hopefully we can get some stuff out there. But yeah, other than that, the Dogman, I'm silly to keep going out there, but it happens.
I would say, yeah.
Makes you want to know more. Like,
you're crazy.
Like
just
I said,
so you know.
it happened in these 3 encounters all happened within 3 weeks. The end of December 2019, before the world went crazy, and I think it happened, and I know a lot of people that have had encounters around that same time, and in the past and that, it's like us people that having these encounters are supposed to, whether it's to wake us up or whatever it is, it was like, it feels like it was meant to happen. And I know, like I said, a lot of people are saying the same thing these last couple of years. These encounters they're having, it's like they're almost happening on purpose. And I've spoken to some Aboriginal elders, like I've spoken to a man that's spoken to Aboriginal elders, and they've actually spoken of Yowies and Aboriginals used to have treaties. They used to trade between each other. The Yowies and that used to make baskets for them. They used to give them food, and there was apparently a treaty of the Aboriginals looked after the land and the Yowies were in charge of the forest. And when the white people come over and the Europeans come over and took over the land, they said the Yowies said that the Aboriginals had broken that treaty because they didn't hold up their side of the bargain of looking after the land. They lost the land to the white people. And you talk to Aboriginals now, you mentioned Yowie, you see their eyes, they glass up. It's like generational DNA imprint. Like as soon as they hear Yowie, they're freaked out. No matter they've seen one or not, that you can just see it in their eyes. And like I've said before, with training racehorses, harness racing, paces and that, pacing isn't a natural gait. They wear hobbles to make them do that pacing, to do that, like that gait. And now the foals are being born and they're getting up and they're not galloping anymore. They're naturally, first thing they do, they're pacing, which it wasn't a natural gait. So it's like DNA imprinted into them. Now the horses for so many years being trained. I said, this is what it's like with the Aboriginals people, because you mentioned Yowie around them, and it's like they've never even heard that word, but they shit themselves straight away. Like, and they reckon it's because this treaty got broken and the Yowies and that, they're not friends or anything. But these elders I've heard about have said some people have been in contact with Yowies and they want their treaty back. They're sick of hiding in the bush. They're sick of, they want to be out. They want people to know about them and all this. And they've actually said that they will be showing themselves to the right people that are going to use it in the right context, whether it this sort of format, get it out like this, or share it with their community. They're going to be doing that more and more over the coming years to help with them being able to come back out because they're sick of hiding. And a lot of people say, oh, it's bull crap or that, but I've seen these creatures, I've had encounters, so that's enough for me to believe anything that could happen. And
right,
like I said, if I hadn't had these encounters, I wouldn't have done this, what I do. I know my podcast isn't real big. I've got like 1,300 subscribers and that, but I haven't really done much about it. But yeah, it's weird, and if these creatures could be coming to life, like they could be coming out and wanting their land back, or they want their forest looked after how they've done it for thousands of years and kept everything in balance and stuff. And yeah, it's going to be some wild times the next couple of years, I reckon. Like the last couple of years have been wild with everything going on around the world. And like I said, I reckon this happened to waking me up to spread the word of these creatures to people that might be at home and have had something knock at the wall and heard something run off and thought, oh, it's nothing of it, or been out in the bush and thought they've seen something run in their torchlight and there's nothing, you know what I mean? Like, the more I talk about it and spread the word, I reckon the more it's benefiting people anyway. Like, and yeah, I think that's what I was supposed to do.
It's amazing, and you'll have to keep me. I mean, you will, but you'll have to keep me updated on stuff as you go out more, and
yeah,
because I'm sure you're gonna have more encounters. But it's just like the Native Americans here. There's out west. I cannot remember the tribe, but they talked about the same thing of having these deals with Sasquatch, with having treaties and trade and stuff like that. And it really seems with the European expansionism is when a lot of that stuff changed. And it, like, you know, I think it's probably similar things that the balance that was established really got messed up.
Yep. You even look at my little town, right? Back in the day, there's a book from like 100 years ago, and they had photos of my town, and you look at the way the landscape was. The river in my town didn't have any bush along it. They had the odd gum tree. Everything was perfect. The Aboriginals did all the land management, right? And then the Europeans come in and that all stopped because they killed a lot of the Aboriginals and pushed them into camps, all that sort of stuff. But that's another podcast when you go into that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
But ever since then, and we don't do they do traditional burning. So they'll burn it. They know the way the wind's blowing, the time of year to do it and everything. They kept everything pristine. Look at them photos then and to now, it looks like a whole different country. And if they reckon that these what would you call it? The way they were doing this, the way they were treating the land and doing their land management was taught to them by the Yowies, and the Aboriginals talk about Yowies as people, not creatures. Right. They reckon they're just another tribe or another person, like they're beings. They're not actually just a creature that's climbed out of a tree and decided to walk. Like they've got their own ways of doing stuff, and yeah, it's just weird. If they've spoken about it, they've got cave paintings of Yowies and that. They've always been around, and we even find, like, sooner or later everyone's going to know, but like Aboriginals, they've been in Australia for 50,000 years. We've got carbon dating done of paintings in Kakadu and that are like over 120,000 years old, and they made out the Aboriginals did nothing. They were just meat eaters. That's all they did. They just hunted. There's books out now with documented stuff from the first fleet of houses and communities and farms and everything. Like, all this stuff's sort of coming out now, and I think that's why the Yowies and other creatures are starting to come out more and more now. It's to wake everyone up to what's going on around them, and to know, hey, we're here and we're not as bad as you make out. Because yeah, Dogman and that's bad, but then Yowies. But there's a lot of good stories you hear too. Right. You hear of kids going missing in the bush and they get saved by a Yowie or a Sasquatch, or even a big dog picked me up and brought me home, Dad. And kids don't make up, like, they see stuff, and they see a lot of stuff that we don't see. Like, what is it, till you're 7 years old, they reckon you're more spiritual, you see ghosts easier and stuff like that. Like, there's all that, there's stories of good and bad, and we won't ever really know unless these creatures were to come out and be able to talk and say, hey, this is us and this is why we're here and where we come from. So it's a lot of guesswork in that. But so I'm just going to be out more and more when I get a chance. Like I said, I've got little kids, so I can't get out all the time, and going to be training my horses again soon, but it's going to be more chance to do this sort of stuff too. I'll have a bit more time to get out and do it. But yeah, it's just the more you see, the more you want to know, and it's good and bad at the same time. Like I said, it woke me up to a lot of the stuff going on in this world before I was a bloody sheep, you know what I mean? But it's good and bad about it, and it's still it's good, and it still scares the crap out of you too when you're sitting there the odd day and go, oh my God, I can't believe I got a photo of a Dogman. Like, that's, right. How? I know I'm rambling on a bit. I'm got a bit carried away rambling on, but yeah, it's just, I'm that passionate. I want to get this out to people to know, hey, I was one of you guys going, oh yeah, whatever, that doesn't exist. You're off your head, like you're on drugs when you're saying that. No, these things are out there and they're getting closer and closer to humanity, and yeah, it's awesome.
I want to have you back on here, after you get back out a few more times and stuff like that. It's been so much fun, and thank you again for coming on. I know we're getting close to the 2-hour mark, but
I tried to do it as quick as I could.
No, it's great. It's not a time thing. It's just it's late here for me.
Yeah.
But will you please promote yourself one more time, your name, where people can find you, and I'll have all the links below.
Yeah, sweet. Yeah, as I said before, you go to YouTube and look up Creepers, Cryptid and Paranormal Corner. You go to Instagram, it's on there too. It's just Creepers, Cryptid there. On Spotify, and I think it's just Spotify at the moment. I've been putting my same videos I put on YouTube onto Spotify. It was under one of the podcasting brands, but I think Spotify owns it now, but they post to Spotify, and I will be posting them to other podcasts as well. I haven't looked into that yet, of setting up like Apple and stuff like that, but if you can go to YouTube, Creepers, Cryptid, Paranormal Corner. It's the same on Spotify, and yeah, so that's all I'm doing at the moment, but it's awesome. Like I said, it got me through the lockdown and the pandemic, the bad stuff, and I had a bit of time where my mental health wasn't good, and this was a good thing. It was a good escape. Not escape, but it was a good thing to get my mind off what else was going on in my life and bring me back to earth, and like bring me back and settle me out and settle me down a bit. And it was good to do this. And I know what I'm doing, I'm a bit dodgy at the moment. Like, I'm only getting used to it. I struggle sometimes. I was really shy as a kid, and it's hard to get on and talk like this, let alone talk about the stuff that I am talking about. But I'm just hoping that one day, someone walking through the bush and be like, oh, I heard John talking about something like this happening before. Oh my God, I'm not crazy. Because I'm tipping there's a lot of people out there that just think they're completely batshit crazy and their mind's going on them. Because, like I said, when I first had these encounters, I didn't believe my own eyes. Like, so I'm just hoping that me doing this and you guys doing it too, you do an awesome job. And
Thank you.
a lot of the guys in America, their podcasts are awesome, but there's a few that like this. You guys, I know I get into like the Appalachian intelligence. I love watching them guys, the confessionals, that sort of stuff. That's sort of my go, and that's what I want to do over here. I want to be able to bring people's stories forward. We've had encounters with these creatures, and the more people find out and the more people come forward, it's only better. There's no negative out of this sort of stuff that we're doing. So hopefully one day I can be as big as you guys, but until then it's awesome to get on and have a chat with you, and hopefully I get some more stuff going on out at this new location. I can talk about it, and once I start doing some interviews, and I'd love to have you guys on to have a chat and tell us about your encounters. And
We'd love to.
Like, I've been listening to you for a while, but even with listening to you for a year or so, I still don't know half the encounters, like your backstories and stuff like that, and I haven't listened to all your episodes, and so it'd be good that I can have people over here listen to what you guys have got to say and stuff, and I get to learn a bit more about you guys too, you know what I mean?
It'd be awesome.
That's what everyone needs to do. There's a lot of people that argue and bicker in the world, and it's good that this sort of genre of, like, this stuff that's going on, more people get on than don't, so it's good. And it's awesome to come on and have a chat with you. It's been heaps good.
Thank you. It's been fun over here too. Now, before we go, you know how we like to end it. I'm going to count down from 3. Me and you are going to scream bye together, and then the outro will play.
Yes, sweet.
You ready?
Yep.
3, 2, 1. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to Cryptids of the Corn podcast.
Please share with a friend you think would like us. It's the best way to help our show grow.
Leave a comment, rate us, a 5-star review, and remember, there is always extra content on Patreon/CryptidsOfTheCorn.com.
And don't forget, stay magical.